right. Hello, everybody. We are live on Facebook. This is Julija Simas, Agent 12 of the Cosmic Intelligence Agency, and you're with us today because it's the equinox tomorrow, and we are having our equinox mission update for today, a day earlier, so that you can get prepared for what we'd like to call the Equinox Intention Mission, because as we've been developing our missions over the years, we started December 2006 with the solstice, when a group of agents met in Melbourne and thought, what will be our first mission? So our first mission was to raise consciousness to the collective mission of astrology at these turning points of the year, the equinoxes and solstices. And we've been doing it ever since. And what is, let's say, fantastic to see is now, 2018, there's equinox intentions and collective missions all over the place. Now, not that they weren't around before, but they weren't connected so much with the astrology of the times. I remember when I was also, starting this with the agents back then, again, there were the Celtic or the pagan or let's say the Wheel of the Year followers that used some astrology, but it was also just written about in, newsletters or pamphlets and that type of thing. Now, of course, this day and age, it's online and we're all much more connected than we used to be, and it's a wonderful thing to see. So with me today, I'm just checking that we're all, that it's working on, what do we call it, Facebook Live. With me today are some fabulous agents, one from France and two from Texas. So I'm going to introduce them first. So Laura Boomer-Trent, I'm not sure, I think you come up in the top right-hand corner at this stage.
Right.
How are you, Laura?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yes, so Laura we know as Agent Dakini, and there's a good reason for that. Can you tell us why you are called Agent Dakini?
That's a good question, actually. Well, the word Dakini means sky goer, and so to be a sky goer in Tibetan, it's quite a wild woman's word, but anybody can be a Dakini. In fact, the male version of it is called the Daka, and the Dakini is within us all, basically, and she is able to synthesize everything that's going on and to help all beings. That's the big, as you say, consciousness raising intention for the name, just briefly. But also I've been around doing our Cosmic Intelligence Agency full moons for nearly 2 years now, would you believe?
Yeah, thanks, and we really appreciate that. So Laura's specialties are with incorporating into the astrology the Tibetan wisdom or the Hindu wisdom as well, and your knowledge is incredible, because I heard you speak or we all did, Shannon and Russell, we all heard you speak in India recently for the first time, and seriously good stuff, as we say.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's part of my Lama's intention, was to actually become a global astrologer, and as I said before, it's not as a famous person or anything like that, but
we're all famous because we've been to India, remember?
I know, but it's to integrate all the various different schools of astrology.
Yeah, no, thanks. Great to have you, Laura. We'll get back to you in a sec. But Laura's in France, but she's, of course, you can tell she's from the UK. That's a giveaway. So next, I'm going to introduce two new agents, whom I've known of before, of course, because so many of us have met online, but we never meet in person. And we met in India. So Russell, I've known about your work for a while. There's a few things, meeting on social media and going, oh, that's an interesting astrologer and what they do. And of course, one of the big things that that I suppose you're known for is the Zodiac Project. Like, firstly, I will talk about the rest in a sec, but so Russell Ohlhausen from Texas, Agent 84. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? And you've got a great number too. I did suggest it.
Yes, it's suggested, and I'm appreciative of that. Yes, 84 being very Uranian, and I was born with Uranus at exact midheaven to the arc minute. So it's very appropriate that 84 came about. Yeah, so I'm known for primarily, well, I'm known for a lot of things. It depends on who you talk to, but the Zodiac Project is pretty universal, the image project, because it's a collection of images from around the world in every culture and every time period that show this reflection to our connection to the heavens, that it's, you know, it's not just something you read in the side column of the funny papers. It's something bigger than that. And it has been known for a very long time. And by images, I've found that that's the best way to help connect people to that information, and to also, for us astrologers, to archive and preserve as much as we can of that knowledge and information that you see just in the statuary, the sculptures, all the paintings, the art, everything around us. Yeah, so that's it's been a pet project. It just kind of came about accidentally, but a lot of people know me for that. I think I have 6,000 people almost on the Facebook group for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll do some more sort of, let's say, highlights as Agent 84 joins the agency.
Sure.
With that to help it along or whatever. So and also you know, your specialty in a sense has become, let's say, the sacred geometry that is in astrology as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I had to get into to begin to prove astrology for myself early on. I came from a metaphysical, hermetic, occult background, integrating astrology into my language. But what I found was the numbers, the patterns express themselves in multiple ways, not just in our psychological understanding of astrology, but in our biological and physiological, the way we progress in the world of matter. And you can see that. And so that kind of diverged into a lot of other projects. One of those, the core being the numbers around the Celestia Mathematica, that the Fibonacci sequence really shows this understanding in a profound way. And so, yeah, that's kind of the other thing I'm known for.
Yeah, no, and you did this amazing visual presentation in India as well. So I think that's, you know, like well, perhaps a way of the future of astrology as well, is the visualizing of what we're talking about as well. So good luck with that, and we're really happy to have you.
Quite Uranian, you know, to do that.
Yeah, and it's all good. I used to do much more of that, and I know how much time is involved. But yeah, we get obsessed with things that we love, don't we? And then Shannon Gill-Jones, also from Austin, and Agent 83. Welcome to our fold. You're an amazing person to have as well, as we're organising something in Colorado, which I'll tell Coloradian. What do we call Coloradians?
That's accurate.
That's accurate. Yeah. That we're having something there on the weekend of the 9th of June, but Shannon's already, like, you know, what a good agent. She's already onto it, helping me organise. So, wow, what a treasure I can tell you're going to be. So thank you so much. But yeah, tell us a bit about yourself and your world of astrology and what you're connected to and that type of thing.
Thank you, Julia. It's such an honor to be here. I appreciate it. My background started actually in Buddhist psychology. I went to Buddhist University in Boulder, Colorado, which is where I lived for 15 years before returning, home to Austin. I'm actually originally an Austinite, and my degree was kind of a combination of contemplative psychology and expressive arts and healing. So I was very interested in dance, music, and art therapy as a mode of healing, and even beyond that, as a mode of connection to the spirit world. So from there, I went on to start studying the archetypes, and I got a certification as a Jungian life coach at the Archetypal Academy, also in Boulder. And that was where I was introduced to astrology. And, you know, I knew that that was definitely the path that I had to take from there. I'm a lifelong student. I mean, it's just I'm one of those people that's always learning and always integrating more. So I went on and took Maurice Fernandez's complete course and chose evolutionary as astrology as my focus. And so I have a private practice, and I feel like I'm just at this phase in my life of integrating all of these different tools. Russell and I actually run a spiritual retreat center in Austin where we're very passionate about embodying the cosmic understanding. And I studied with many medicine people my time in Colorado, probably 15 years on the Red Road, and doing lots of understanding of indigenous wisdom. And so now it does feel like the time that we're blessed to have an amazing space to offer ceremony and ritual, to bring people together at these cosmic thresholds and actually help them remember some of these ancient practices that have been just sort of taken out of today's world. So that's a large part of my passion. And another, I guess, important piece is dance. I founded an ecstatic dance community in Boulder named Rhythm Sanctuary, and I'm extremely passionate about the body as a portal, as a vessel to connect to the higher vibrations, to enhance healing, to gain visions. It's basically the reemergence of the shamanic trance dance. So we host large intentional dance rituals for the community also.
Fantastic. Well, you're certainly the right person to help us along with that. You know, we might not have a dance party online today, but something. we'll talk.
But we will in Boulder.
Okay? Yeah. We will in Boulder. So yeah, we're just putting the information together for that at the moment. But so the reason we're all here is so that we're looking at what do you call it? The equinox. And I'm just going to put the quick. Where is it? Where is it? Desktop. Uh-oh. Okay, that's not working. Sorry. I'm going to... It usually comes up. One sec. Why is my... I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to do this. I'll stop this. Sorry. Stop. Never mind. I will find that while I'm going to get Laura to do her presentation first, because... you've got some really good info on the energies of the equinox. While I find the chart I was going to share, we're going to pretty much be talking about just the ingress chart after Laura speaks, the qualities and the energies of the equinox and how best we can utilize that, but also looking into the 3 months ahead, which are mainly astrologically, like the astrological year starts tomorrow with equinox when the sun goes into 0 Aries. And this is, you know, the turning point of the sun moving over the equator and going back up to the north. And it in astrological traditions, it always represented very much so the year ahead, the quality of the year ahead. And it changed depending on if it was a mutable sign or a fixed sign or a cardinal sign rising in the place that, you know, you were doing it for. Like I would do it for Melbourne, Australia, or you do it for the capital of the country, like in this case, Canberra, Australia, or Washington, DC. We're not looking at it like that today. We're looking at more from a global perspective, because that it's almost like I've always said, you need an agent in every city to report on, you know, the Aries equinox for that particular country and so on. So we're going to concentrate on the next 3 months as we've always done, because taking in the whole year, there's so much going on for the year. And that the main things are Chiron moving into Aries and Uranus in Taurus. So we're going to touch on those things. But first of all, can the other two agents, or Shannon, can you mute yourself while I get Laura to begin this off? So Laura, over to you, and thank you for what you've prepared today, because I've already seen how good it is.
Thank you.
So
Thank
reminding you how to share your screen. I'll mute myself, but I am here if needed. Okay.
Okay. I just want to say first off, actually, a very, very happy astrological new year to everybody, because it is a big one. And also, I'd like to say Navroz Mubarak to all my Persian friends whose their new year starts in Persia for the equinox. And I'd like to start, see if I can get it up actually. I seem to have lost it a bit. Hang on a second. Oh, hang on. And
that's it.
That's it. Start the slideshow. And it's also the Kala Chakra New Year. And the Kala Chakra is a fantastic multi-dimensional time wheel, basically. And it's the mandala that His Holiness Dalai Lama will perform when actually, he's done it like 35, maybe 36, maybe even more times. I've done it with him several times, I think maybe 3 times. And it takes 10 days to basically build this. It's a sand mandala. And this particular time wheel is specifically for world peace. And it starts off at 0 degrees Aries, which I find really fascinating, actually, because as I was saying earlier, you know, like my Lama was saying that get to know other forms of astrology. But then my big dilemma was I going to do Hindu astrology, or was I going to do Chinese astrology or elemental astrology? But when I discovered that the Kala Chakra, which my Lama was actually the clear light lineage holder of, and I discovered that it came from 0 degrees Aries, I thought, right, that's it. I can stick basically with my fantastic, which I think is just a great tool, our tropical Western astrology, because it's a really wonderful map, not just of the psyche, but I just wanted to introduce you to the fact that the actual Kala Chakra New Year starts tomorrow at 1616 GMT. And this particular mandala, which is quite interesting also, is very similar to the medicine wheel that you used for the invitation, Julia. But it's not as uncomplicated. It's quite a complicated setup, as you can see. And it's got 5 main mandalas here, but basically we can take 3, body, speech, and mind, which is what we're talking about how the actual light of the cosmos, it comes from outside of ourselves, but it can also be radiated from within ourselves. So this particular mandala starts off with wind, fire, earth, and water. I don't want to get too much into it because it's actually really complicated, but just suffice to say that anybody who's studying other forms of astrology and having quandaries about whether or not they can actually use 0 degrees Aries tropical as their basis for astrology, then you basically have the blessings of the world peace mandala. Kala means time and chakra means wheel. So it's the time wheel, this multi-dimensional time wheel. And I just want to move along because these are simpler versions of the time wheel. And here we have, if I can I use my pointer on this? Can you see my pointer, people?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Brilliant, great. So we've got the spring equinox. And basically what I wanted to say was that Aries is where the sun is exalted. So of course we've got these great fire festivals, the solar fire festivals, which Aries is very much the starting point of. And the 8 fire festivals are recognized throughout the world, basically, as we have the equinoxes, we have the solstices as the cardinal points, and then we have the cross quarter points for the fixed cross. So we're starting off with Ustra right now with equal day, equal night on both sides of the horizon, and then we have an 8 spoke wheel of the Dharma wheel, the 8 observances of the yoga, which takes you into the self. And I put this other one in, this other Native American Indian medicine wheel, just so that we can get an idea of how many different cultures actually recognize the 8-pointed wheel of the 8 fixed, or the 8 fixed and cardinal points. Okay, I'm going to move along, because the whole idea is that the solar logos is that the solar represents the spirit. The circle is the never-ending circle of life, death, and rebirth. And the point in the middle, we can say, is the bindu, where everything comes up and everything collapses back into. So that is the spirit. The spirit is that part of ourselves which is in that constant process of becoming who we are and what we are. And that is our solar point. So in astrology, of course, we look to the sun, which is now going to be, from tomorrow onwards, is going to be exalted in Aries. I put this slide up actually because it's a slide I used to actually illustrate what the sun actually rules in the horoscope. So it rules our vital force, spirit, love, light, and the heart. I'm not going to read everything out, but you can have a quick look at it. And if anybody wants to have any of these slides, then just give me a buzz and I'll forward them on. But suffice to say that the sun is exalted in Aries. So this is the time when we can actually get in touch with our spirit, get in touch with our heart and our vital force, and everything starts to grow from here on in. So the sun is this, in the analema, the sun is about here, in either one of these, if you're north or south. And that's equal day, equal night. And this is the beautiful 8 shape, the shape of an 8 that it makes in the sky as it travels, as it's actually photographed from the same point every day or every month or whatever the timing is. It actually makes this fantastic shape of an 8, which is called an analema. And this one's taken from the Apollo temple. And what's interesting is it takes 8 minutes for the light of the sun to reach Earth. And every 8 minutes, there are portals that open up in various places between the Earth and the sun, where our magnetic fields, the electromagnetic field from the Earth and the sun actually merge, which I find absolutely fascinating. So we're talking about the sun and the sun's best time that it's ever going to be, which is in Aries, right? And the sun is constantly putting out the energy as the spirit is. And we have these solar winds. So it's spinning and waving, and these solar winds, and it creates these coronal mass ejections, which then send out plasma, photons, ions, geomagnetic storms, which actually can affect the human body and the human mind enormously. I've heard people complaining about headaches and feeling tired. And this is because at the equinox, what happens is that the relationship between Earth and the sun is such that our electromagnetic fields start to create these portals where the solar winds come rushing in, and we get these fantastic auras in the poles of the Earth. And as above, so below. So we're supposedly at a very quiet spot now in sunspot cycles, which are about 11-ish years. And we're now at a quiet point. But actually, at the equinox, there is no quiet point. It rages. And we keep getting these fantastic openings where the electromagnetic energy comes through. And I really have this understanding, I think, actually, that as the electromagnetic energy, which is from the sun, which is actually called the light of intelligence, this intelligence almost informs us. It helps us grow. Without the sun, life on Earth is nothing. And so this light of intelligence is coming in through the poles. And as it comes in through the poles, it also comes in through our own electromagnetic energy fields, which we have in our bioenergy fields. So as I said, it's body, speech, and mind. So I put this up actually just because I thought it was very interesting to see that we're in this kind of cosmic egg, this heliosphere, and Earth has this atmosphere and magnetosphere, and there we are. As I hope I'm explaining this okay, where the electromagnetic energy flows in through the Earth's poles, and it activates. If we're to say that we are one with the Earth, then it's also flowing through our sushumna, through our central columns, through our central energy fields. And it will then activate the heart. And here we can see the aura of the human body, but we can also see that there's the aura of the Earth. The Earth has its own aura. I kind of want to say, are there any questions? But, so going back to the Kala Chakra, the Kala Chakra teaches that there are subtle and very subtle body energies, which are our etheric bodies, where we have the chakras, the nadis, 72,000 nadis, and we have the 7 main chakras. And these are specifically subject to solar lunar cycles and the planets and the signs, and they're very much connected to the 8 fire festivals. So our energy can actually raise and it can diminish according to the various different solar fire markers that we have. For instance, you know, like at equinox, and then Beltane or May the 1st, the solstices, and so on. The chakras in the body, which are specifically aligned to the solar energy, of course, are the solar plexus. And you can activate that by rum. You can actually, if you do that, you can actually feel your solar plexus. And I imagine that everybody in Facebook is now doing rum, which would be wonderful. And you're activating your city of jewels, which is the Manipura chakra, which is your solar plexus. And in the Kala Chakra, that's called the wheel of emanation. So this is where you're actually emanating. So you're emanating your spirit. And you're also discovering what your gifts are. Similarly, it's the heart and the heart chakra. And this is called the wheel of Dharma, according to the Kala Chakra. And fascinating is that there's this kind of, the heart chakra's image is a 6-pointed star where it's a double tetrahedron and 19.47 degrees. There are the 2 lines, the north and south, where the 2 triangles, Shiva Shakti, interconnect. And this is spinning constantly. And you can see it in the sun. And I put the green sun with the green filter on. But you can kind of see those triangular points are being activated by the sun's electromagnetic energy. All life is electromagnetic energy. All life is basically part of the big biosphere, the biofields. Okay. And the whole idea is that once you can actually meditate upon these particular chakras, that you can start to activate your own biosphere and to calm the peace of mind that you're looking for, and to raise the cosmic love vibration. And this is kind of like a funky, which would be good in your dance, ecstatic dance. I think, Shannon, would be quite fabulous if we had this image there.
We'll have to use that again, yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But I want to finish actually, because I could just talk for ages about the body, speech, and mind, and how everything is completely interconnected. But I wanted to say that when the sun comes along, the sun does represent a lot of generosity, and it's about giving and loving. But I want to just finish with this quote from the Buddha, which says, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." And, you know, Aries is all about me, myself, and I. And I'm going to sneak another little quote in. This one's from His Holiness Dalai Lama, which is me, myself, and I. There was an empirical study that found that people who have a tendency to use more self-referential terms, I, myself, me, they tend to have more health problems and earlier deaths. These people have more involvement with the self. So being self-absorbed has an immediate effect upon narrowing one's focus and blurring one's vision. It is like being pressed down by a heavy load. If, on the other hand, you think more about the well-being of others, it immediately makes you feel more expansive, liberated, and free. Problems which may have seemed enormous before would then seem much more manageable. So that if we're constantly finding this balance between myself and others, you know, and others and myself. But actually, with Aries, it's very much to do with doing what you need to do right now, because this is the birth of new ideas. Aries is the light of life, which gives birth to new ideas. So this is a fantastic moment in time where we can generate world peace, with world peace externally, world peace within ourselves. There is a bit of saber rattling going on at the moment, so world peace would be very welcome. And yeah, any questions, basically?
I'll look into the thread, but I love what I'm thinking of as we just read this quote. Me, myself, and I was very much Chiron moving from Pisces to Aries. Like, don't forget what we've learned over the last, how long has it been? 10 years or something? 8 years. Of Chiron in Pisces.
Yes, Chiron in Pisces, yeah.
You know, so all of that about giving and to the other, you know, we know that, of course, when there's too much of that, it's not a good thing either. So as you said, it's the sacred balance, you know, the giving, but then the looking after yourself. So perhaps it's that reminder that, yes, we need to, you know, if we're not strong, then we're no good for anybody. So,
well, this is a time of balance. You know, the equinox is a time of balance. So it's like finding that balance between myself and you, you know, us, me, and we. It really does. That whole axis gets activated.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that, Laura. That's very inspiring and a great reminder of the warmth of the sun and, you know, how powerful it is as well. Like, you know, to do, you know, meditations, just even, you know, imagining or feeling that energy going through our centers like the Taurus is quite powerful, isn't it? Just standing in the sunlight, reminding us to kind of absorb the sun and, you know, all that type of thing. Beautiful. Russell or Shannon, if you have anything to sort of add to Laura's words there?
Oh, can you hear me now? There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, you're speaking my language. You know, I mean, that's so much of what I see, how I see the world through this multiple layer of photon and electron and magnetic energy, the angles of light revealing itself to us in transmission. That's really important to remember as we move forward on, particularly tomorrow, that there's like a portal at this time to open that, and what you showed us was a portal to exactly what, you know.
Yeah, but to the heart.
Yeah, to the heart.
To the heart. It starts with the heart. Exactly. Yeah. What about you, Shannon? Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No, good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what a beautiful presentation. And you're right, those images of actually the light permeating the cells. That's a lot of the work that I like to do with people on the dance floor, is to experiment with opening different parts of their bodies, even their fingertips, to allow more light in, because we tend to, in our culture, walk around, you know, sort of from the head up. And we are quite dissociated, you know, we really have emphasized the masculine in a lot of ways, and the mental capacities, and this time of healing, the mind, body, spirit split, the disconnection from humanity to earth has everything to do with the opening up of the vessel and inviting in the light and removing the obstructions. Can you hear me okay? Because there's a major windstorm right now, and I feel like my signal might be a little choppy.
No, you're good.
No, you're good. Good.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Well, equinoxes tend to have a lot of crazy weather. We had really windy weather for the last 3 days. It's a time of the year that, well, the seasons are changing, and so
solar winds.
The solar winds come in. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So look, I'm going to now, the reason that my screen didn't share before is because I didn't have the software open. So that's how it makes sense. So now agents, you can kind of pipe in and talk at any point here about what I'm going to talk about. Just pretty much introducing the Aries equinox, or the signature, again, as I said, for the year ahead, but mostly for the 3 months ahead, as we like to look at it. So as we can see, there's a dominance of Aries planets, and we can see that the sun is at 0, 0. So the time, as Laura said, for the exact equinox is 4:15 p.m. GMT time. So adjusting that these days can be easily done on time and date, adjusting that time to your own time frame. And as a result, we've always, as we're going to sum this up as an intention mission towards the end, the mission that you do, or the intention to sit down or stand in the sun, or whatever we're going to do, is to do it within the 24 hours of the sun at 0 degrees of Aries. Okay, so we sort of hone in that time to be the most powerful of this kind of time frame. Russell, can you just mute yourself when you talk? Sorry, it just, you can hear things going on with the earphones on. It's like that. So what we can see, I did look into a few charts, and Taurus becomes very dominant in the next few months, not only with Uranus going into Taurus, but a few ingresses having quite strong Taurus signatures. So anyway, we've got that's coming up though. But what are the main things that we see in the chart that are going to tell us about the next 3 months? Firstly, Mercury's going retrograde. It's stationing at the moment. It's not quite stopped yet, but in the next 2 days, it's going to turn retrograde. So the beginning of the year starts with the Mercury retrograde that starts conjunct Venus and in Aries. Any of you want to say anything about that? Laura, what would you say about a Mercury retrograde infused 3 months?
Well, I personally find it fascinating that Facebook lost 25 billion today from, just as Mercury's about to station to go retrograde. And it was revealed by a whistleblower who had red hair. And that, if that is not Mars out of bounds, I don't know what is. But what's interesting is that, you see, I have quite wide orbs. And so I will look at, like for me, Mercury is still with Uranus. So there's this whole thing about the technology, and also when we look at the, just jumping ahead to your Uranus ingress chart, you'll notice that Uranus is with Mercury. And there's still this connection between Mercury and Uranus, and how things are, we're still working this very new internet out, basically. Although it's great bringing us all together, but it's actually, we've got to be careful about how we're brought together, or not how, but what happens when we're brought together. And so I found that actually very funny, and I just thought, oops a daisy. Also, the other thing was just news-wise was that Uber, the car company, the taxi company, which is very Mercury, have just had their very first accident, and somebody was actually sadly killed, I think in Arizona, or was it Texas? I don't know.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that was so. If you want, can I just point out that there's three planets in exaltation? Have you
Oh, okay, good point. Yeah, no.
You know, the sun is in exaltation, the moon is in exaltation, and Mars is in exaltation.
Yeah, very
although
good.
out of bounds. And and the moon, just to say, because I'm very moony, is conjunct a couple of fixed stars, and from one is Hamal, which is the woman does her own thing, and the other is Shadar, which is the queen. And this is all in Cassiopeia. And what was interesting for me was that, because you know, I don't know if you do know, but I'm going to be talking at the Astrological Lodge of London in a couple of weeks about the astrology of Mary Magdalene.
Oh,
I know. And so I was looking at that and I was thinking, hang on a second, isn't there something about this particular queen? And sure enough, in the 17th century, they wanted to check, the Christians wanted to actually call it Mary Magdalene, this particular star that the moon is with. And this is the week that the Mary Magdalene film is being released in Europe. Anyway.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah. Wow.
I know, lots of coincidences, or whether or not, you know, there are no coincidences, because everything's quite cosmic.
That's right. It's just cosmic.
It's just cosmic, exactly.
Yeah.
So there we go. So that's my, there's lots of other stuff. But,
no, that's great. That's a great addition. I'm just wondering if there's going to be more information about the Queen and stuff coming out as well. Like all sorts of queens.
Well, and of course Harry is getting married to Meghan Markle.
Yeah, well, that's the royal, you know, flavour and that type of thing. As you talked about Mars out of bounds, just for the people that don't know, out of bounds planets happen when they're around the solstice points, like Capricorn at the end of Sagittarius, at the end of Gemini, and at the end of Cancer, when they're at that extreme, let's say when the sun's in Capricorn, it's at a solstice point, right? So when a planet's there and it goes beyond where the sun goes, so higher or lower than 23 degrees, 27, I think, minutes of declination, north or south. So Mars is actually not really going too far out of bounds. It's actually, as I've kind of written before, it's riding the edge of 23, like 30, you know, like 20, it's not going far, or I think it gets like to 24. So it's really like a skateboarder on the edge, like on a rail going, you know, this year's going to be daring, but am I ready? I'm kind of, you know, I'm going somewhere, but I'm not sure. And of course that will culminate with Mars retrograde in Aquarius, which is another story, but that happens in the next quarter, doesn't it? Like from June. Mars will spend, 6 months in Aquarius around the South Node, or that's where the retrograde starts, and that will be at around 8 degrees of Aquarius. So already look ahead. What's around 8 degrees Aquarius, and where's Aquarius in your chart? Already, you know, like kind of alerting people with readings in the last few months about what's going on, and, you know, seeing sections of the chart that this retrograde will happen in. It's very good to be aware of course, already, because looking back at the 15 or 16 year cycle of Mars and what happened last time, we get these, you know, light bulb moments, people going, oh, right, you know, wow, that happened that time as well. So again, look back 15 years ago to see when Mars was retrograde in that area of your chart, although the South Node was not there at the same time. So anyway, this is all about knowing the cosmic cycles, and the more that you know about them, the more you know how to read them. And of course, that's our role here, to help you along a little bit. Russell, do you have anything to add to this equinox chart, or Shannon?
Yeah, I can add a little bit. You know, I have a close friend of mine that has a very similar chart, the last degrees of Pisces, but with this union of similar Mercury Mars energy in Aries as well. And I tell you, the native is extremely powerful and creative in the world. It's not just a unifying of the dark and light forces, but the masculine and feminine forces together, as above, so below, left and right. Not just, it's multi-dimensionally compacted energy is the way I see it. And you know, I see this being a kind of a birth time for more. I don't want to say androgynous, but a unified pandrogynous feeling of all of these energies merging into something very powerful, a creative being, as it were, with this new energy, not being quite the same as last year. There's going to be a lot of chaos, but I think that the waves are a little more manageable this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly seems more grounded with the moon in Taurus, and it's trine Saturn. So it's almost like people are ready to do more hard work about the manifesting of everything that we've talked about, you know, for years. Exactly. Like the world is changing, but, you know, okay, like how are you changing it? And really, you know, that, you know, has been that sort of feeling over the last few years. But I think it's kind of like the reality has hit. We do have to, to me, and it's also Uranus going into Taurus, it's going to be much more, let's say, productive in that way. Perhaps also destructive in different ways as well. So we're going to see that manifestation really come to light, as opposed to just you know, all talk in our heads. You know, this is Uranus going into Taurus as well. It's going to be grounding a lot of things for us all and changing what we do with that. You know, again, not wanting to talk, you know, so I mean, that's the gist of that energy, and just remembering that Chiron is also leaping over that threshold. Let me just get the chart of Chiron ingress.
Before we go, can I just go back to the Mars-Saturn? Because Mars is the ruler of Aries. And we really need to look at this Mars conjunct Saturn and how it is going to be conjunct Saturn around just after Easter on the 2nd of April. I want to just warn people to, you know, I'm saying like birth of new ideas, but there's also a certain caution put in with this, with the Mars-Saturn. Mars wants to rush ahead a lot of the time, but when it's exalted in Capricorn, it's to be to do so, to move with a calculated ease, you know, and to do with a certain kind of authority. It's not one of my favorite conjunctions, and specifically
oh really,
not Mars-Saturn. Mars on the South Node is probably my least favorite, but there we go.
Oh no, you gotta love that. You gotta love it. Something's got to be the caustic agent for change. You know.
You're right. Well, you're right.
We all know a few caustic agents, but you know.
Yeah. Well, just as you say that, Laura, Capricorn's in its domicile, and Mars is exalted, exactly. So it's a bit of a different one. It's probably the best conjunction of these two, right?
Exactly. But it's also conjunct a fixed star, which actually can bring about a certain kind of ruthlessness. So we have to be careful of that, of falling into the you know, that bossiness that the Mars-Saturn can create. So I'm just sort of talking from a world stage point of view, and I'm just hoping that, you know, certain people are able to just to look at the reality of situations as opposed to getting stuck into what they would like to happen.
Yeah, that dreamy sort of aspect and imaginings and inspiring. Sorry, Shannon, but yeah, the reality hit, like this is doable. I'm going to do the doable part of it. Yeah. Sorry, Shannon.
That's okay. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add and echo some of what Laura is speaking to. It just, this sort of feels like, you know, it's always darkest before the dawn, all this Aries energy for this birth of this new year. And with Jupiter, you know, just turning retrograde and really bringing up some of the residue of the shadow that has yet to been brought to light that still needs healing. I'm seeing the shadow coming up, even in the spiritual communities that we work in. It's been a little bit chaotic, and holding space for that, knowing that there's been this thrust from the underworld brought to the surface. And it does feel sort of like, the violence of birth with all this Aries before we come through the birth canal, and that there is going to be this opportunity to ground this energy with all of these planets now moving into Earth this year. But I do see a volatile summer coming up with the, the eclipses, and then the double retrograde overlapping with Venus and Mars. And then, I'm sort of holding the light for Jupiter to move into Sag to sort of bring the moral to the story.
Well, that's going to be a great shift, to sort of lift the spirits, I think, isn't it? Jupiter into Sag, something like... Yeah.
Can I just say about Jupiter in the ingress chart? It is the leader of the actual bowl shape of the chart. It does lead. So, ultimately, we do have optimism, and we do have the right view, which is the most important thing to have in many ways, is to be able to see things correctly. I just think that, just reiterating, is that, yes, there's new birth, but let's do it carefully. Let's do it with taking responsibility.
Yeah, this speaks of slowing down. Jupiter's retrograde as well. Like, we can't have it all at once. It's going to take time, all of that type of thing. I mean, I was just thinking of, let's say, doing a talk for the New Paradigm community tomorrow on the equinox as well, or Astrology Day. And we've all got to sort of come up with what we think, what's a good message for us, Astrology Day, let's see. And, Uranus moving into Taurus is going to, like astrology is really in the world now, isn't it? It's being absorbed in so many ways. And for those of us that, it's quite wonderful to see that. At the same time, we're kind of horrified by some of the things that we're seeing, like, fake astrology, fake news, fake, this and that. But I think the message with Uranus is going into Taurus is as well is like, take your time. People want to know astrology like this and in 10 weeks, and like, I can get it all at once. You can't. It's one of those things that will take time. And I'm hoping that Uranus in Taurus will slow that down a bit. For like sensible astrology to somehow, take more hold than how it has exploded recently. That's how I'm seeing it.
Takes a couple of years.
Yeah, it takes a couple of years, exactly.
A couple of years.
Yeah. It doesn't take 10 weeks and a couple of months, and there's books you need to read in between and all sorts of stuff. One thing I wrote about the other day was Jupiter in conjunct Eris at this time, and it really kind of, in a sense, sums up a theme for me of, we've all got a part to play in the chaos, right, that is out there, and our role, however small it is, or however we may think it's somewhat ineffective, like chucking an apple into a wedding, and then, did we know that it was going to happen or not, like Eris did in the myth. And, we can create big change just as a butterfly effect from ourselves. So, thinking that we're hopeless in, being able to sit here or just, debate things on social media, is that making a difference? And can we do more? And every little bit helps. Anyway, so just a little bit of that. Now, let's have a quick look at the Aries, the Chiron ingress into Aries, because that's coming up the 17th of April, not too far away. What comes to mind with that? Here we have the moon in Taurus again, which is something that I've seen as a theme throughout the whole year. Yes. So Venus is opposite Jupiter. What kind of images do we get with Chiron in Aries?
Well, I get my Chiron return image is what I get. You know,
right? Well, you're probably a good one to talk to us about it then, hey?
I don't know about that. We don't see eye to eye on some of these things. My Chiron and Aries. But yeah, I'm born under this, so it's been an interesting observance of my own life patterns as the myth goes of the self being wounded repeatedly over and over, and then having to seek out new knowledge, new awareness to work that healing. And of course, I believe that was really a deep root for me. It was a deep rooted part of my journey into understanding astrology, to heal the self deeply on a true Aries level.
Yeah.
That I had to. I'm also a Sagittarius ascendant, so it's like I need to know as much as possible about the cosmos to heal myself and eventually also heal the larger global perspective of the world. You know, and as you said, every little bit helps. All the work we do in connection. So learning to cope with that will be my entire life journey, I'm sure.
I love that in this chart the sun is conjunct Uranus, so we know Chiron is also a maverick type, an outsider, a one that doesn't fit in, and you know, in Aries I see Chiron as very much the shamanic, coming out with feathers and smoke, and you know, like, I'm a shaman, or I use astrology, or I don't care what you think. It's a really kind of bold image of coming out and being and living that let's say holistic, like as Russell said, you know, we come into astrology because there's some kind of healing of the psyche or the soul that we're attracted to, and it's quite chironic, and then we realize, you know, how deep and how holistic it is actually to do astrology. So what about you? What any of you, Laura, what's your image of Chiron in Aries?
My first impression was that the mind, you know, Mercury conjuncts Chiron there, and the mind and the way that we think and what we think about, and you know, it's in Aries, so in many ways it's about healing our minds and actually taking time to get the right view, understand that we can change our minds, you know, with that Sun Uranus, and it's okay to change our minds. It's okay to actually sometimes even say that we were wrong. And so there's an element of like healing. Training the mind actually is probably one of the most important things that you can do in Buddhism for starters. You know, it's about training the mind of eliminating the mind of destructive emotions. And that, if we could actually infuse not just astrology, but, you know, into the secular world, that actually the way that we think has a lot to do with how we shape the world. And I think that the Chiron energy can help us to. It was actually the chap, Gemini Brett, was talking about how Chiron is a great mentor. You know, he was actually Chiron was even mentored by the sun. So we're going to be using poetry and herbs and different forms of healing for the mind, as well as the actual dance, and different ways of actually understanding how the mind works, you know, and using technology as well, the way that, and understanding that we can train our minds through technology instead of actually allowing technology to lead us, which is what's been happening recently.
Yeah, that really plays with your mind, doesn't it? Because we're so stressed and we get, you know, 80 emails a day, and you know, like, you know, how many things do we have to, you know, adhere to keep it up, kind of thing. Yeah, crazy. Switching off.
So it is about. I feel it's about training our minds to eliminate destructive emotions and to embrace more positive emotions, more healing emotions, because we need it. You know, the planet is in a bit of a state, especially after Chiron leaving Pisces, and it's going to dip back in. And, you know, I heard that dolphins, there's loads of dolphins. Sorry, this is a really sad story. If you want to hear this. Like, oh God, the baby dolphins are not capable of accepting their mother's milk because it's too toxic and it's filled with plastic.
Oh,
yeah. So the dolphins are having a really hard time. So the things from the sea, you know, which actually represents all our emotions. And I mean, my Lama taught me that the more polluted a place is, the more difficult it is to actually think clearly. And perhaps the Chiron dipping into Aries allows us to have a new start about the way that we think and have a new,
shift.
Shift
A few things. Yeah,
we'll go back into Pisces.
Yes, it goes. I've got the dates. It goes back in September. It goes retrograde and then comes back into Aries in March 2019 up until 2027. So we've got a while. Chiron does spend the longest time in Pisces, the least time in Virgo, and then therefore, you know, Aries is kind of a little bit less than Pisces, I think. So is that correct, or am I saying the wrong way around? Yeah, the longest time in Pisces, yeah. But what I was thinking of Chiron in Aries is the world of alternative medicine. You know, there's a lot of that coming into the picture. I saw a doco on medical marijuana last night. It's still still not like allowed in Australia. It's like people are still getting busted for it. I mean, seriously, you know, where it's helping so many people already, you know, so that light of alternative healing. Chiron's always been about the alternatives, you know, like if someone's got a serious Chiron transit, it's like we send them, have you tried some alternatives? You know, like you need some alternative therapies. And so the rise of that, as well as Uranus in Taurus, you know, using different therapies for the body, like the combination of that is giving light to a lot of us astrologers, alternative therapies, holistic healing as a major sort of shift. It's been coming, I know, but I think it was just going to be the reality of that will be much more here and available to everyone. Yes, go Russell.
Julie, I was going to just say, you know, just to point this out from an Aries point of view, alternative is always a matter of perspective, isn't it? So what we're turning to is back to the way it was. Everything we call alternative is actually natural, and the way we've thrown ourselves on the side of this polarity of what we think of as, you know, accepted and traditionally more modern and contemplative is this other type of medicine, and really we've got it wrong way around. So
good point. Yeah, no, I like that, because then it will be, what, you don't know astrology? That's the weird thing.
And that was a requirement.
Yeah,
that was a requirement back in the true day. You know, it was like you had to be an astrologer before you were a doctor. Now it's like, what happened to that?
Exactly. Yeah, right. What do you mean you're not an astrologer? Or maybe you mean you don't know astrology? You know, so yeah, you know, that's exciting about that, isn't it? So hence they need us all to kind of help with you know, the good information that is there. Mars and Saturn are still together. So interesting times, isn't it? Like, it's really quite exciting. And I think, as I'm saying, for astrology. Now let's quickly go into Uranus and Taurus. I know it's all taking longer, as it does. Are you guys okay to stay for a bit? And then we'll go on to Russell next. Just quickly, the Uranus and Taurus ingress. So Uranus will be in Taurus. Just before moving on from Chiron in Aries, remember when Chiron moved into Pisces, and we had the great oil spill, the Gulf oil spill that couldn't be switched off for 40 days or something, you know. So zero Aries is quite a significant point too, but you know look, let's hopefully there's no huge disasters, but there's disasters all the time. Sorry?
It was Fukushima.
No, that was Uranus into Aries. I said when Chiron went into Pisces.
Oh yeah, sorry, beg your pardon.
It was the Gulf spill, but anyway, yes, right. and then Uranus into Aries was Fukushima. It was actually my birthday, and I was heading down to the coast, and I wrote the last post. I said, I'm going down to the ocean to watch Uranus come out of the sea.
Whoa.
I get down to, it's like 3 hours away, and the place that I'm staying, the people are there and they're watching the TV looking at this tsunami. So it had happened at the time that I was driving down, and I just went, what? Anyway, hopefully this kind of stuff, but, you know, with a lot of the Taurus energy, you kind of, I don't know, imagine, you know, earthy shifts and that type of thing as well, without scaring everyone, but the world is a bit scary sometimes, isn't it? Look at the moon there again in Taurus. So yeah, these three ingresses have all got the moon in Taurus, which is, again, you know, what's most important. You know, Taurus is about, you know, if I'm fed, if I'm healthy, if I'm fed, if I'm, you know, what do you call it? I've got shelter and warmth, I'm okay. What else do we need? I know Taurus can be a bit more greedy than that, but, you know, it's about working hard. It's about doing what's necessary. It's about getting on with it, really, isn't it? Instead of looking for too much more periphery stuff that's happening at the time. And also the economy. Don't we think about the economy and money when we think about Taurus and banks and,
Sure.
you know, who owns what and that type of thing, coupled with the Capricorn. So well, there's the Mercury Uranus, as you said, Laura, as well. So enlightening our kind of attitude to substance, resources, that type of thing.
Yeah, finding some stability. I think that, you know, allowing the mind to find some kind of stability, I think is really important.
Yeah.
I just want to go just what Russell was saying earlier. It's the female passion with Algol on the moon, and the male assertion with the fixed star Capulus on the sun. Really strong male-female energies coming together here at this particular Uranus in Taurus combination. I'm really looking forward to Uranus in Taurus, although it is in its fall.
Okay, because the esoteric, it's in exaltation in Scorpio, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was those are the punk years, and now we've written it fall.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. No, I'm actually looking forward to
well, change is always good, as we say, whichever way we're ready for it. But I like the idea that Uranus in Taurus will help alleviate where we're stuck as a collective, where we're stuck in kind of patterns, and shift us out of some shit that, you know, we just really don't know how to move on from. Yes,
Julia,
Russell.
we'll have, you know, with that connection between, with Mercury there, you know, and Uranus, we're going to have the mind capacity, the power, if we can harness that, to understand what we need as we move forward with that. You know, for those who may not be aware or practice this, that Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So working with those two mental realms, one more chaotic. They're actually they can both. I mean, I have Mercury Gemini, so I can be chaotic, and it's squaring my Uranus. So it's like you know, but I've learned to work with that, and if we can learn to work with that energy as we look at this chart, that can be very beneficial.
Yeah, and that's in a sense the secret or the purpose is that we work with the astrology to co-create as we would get. You know, we would, let's say, better ourselves or understand ourselves better. We're understanding the world better. We're understanding what we're going through and what perhaps we can work towards. And, you know, Uranus in Taurus for astrology with that Mercury is the ancient ruler of astrology. Uranus is the modern ruler of astrology. I think it's a really good sign for astrology. So I'm excited for that reason, as I was saying before. And we won't talk more about that now because there's more of all of this, like getting into depth into Chiron in Aries, into depth of Uranus in Taurus for our members and membership. So if you haven't joined yet, there's heaps to consider for not only for your own learning, but because there's, as you can see, our agents are amazing. I've collected them from all over the place, or they come to us because they're interested in joining the mission, so to speak. But also we also need to, let's say, keep things going. So the funding or helping with the membership or joining is really good. It's a way of donating and that type of thing. So if you're not a member, please consider that, because we were going to put the prices up for the equinox and we haven't done it yet. And it's only going to be ready by April. The first 2 years were, I suppose, in a sense, a giveaway, because you got a T-shirt and all that kind of thing, and it just became too expensive for us. So anyway, we're kind of shifting a few things. Uranus in Taurus, we're shifting a few things as well. Anyway, so now over to you, Russell. I know we've taken a lot more time for all of you, but just what would you like to share with us today? Specifically,
while we were running a little earlier, I got the idea to show something that I had been working on with sacred geometry and balance, and that the little video segment I did. I think we could. Why don't we run that, if that's okay with you?
Now, if you wanted sound, there's a little box. 2 windows come up when your square comes up to share screen. So go for it. Go share screen. And then it says sound. You have to add the sound.
Okay, so I'm going to just let me play this for 2 seconds here, and I'll click share screen. And a little box with 2 windows.
Down the bottom it says, like, if you want sound with it.
Share sound.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Optimize and share screen. Oh, okay. Didn't know it was asked for a password. Okay, so you've got me now?
Yeah, you can make that, if you can make that bigger. Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, sorry. Let's go ahead and here we go. I will expand this all the way out, and
that's a good idea.
Thank you for dealing with me for a second, and we'll roll.
A fundamental element of human nature is the need for creative work, for free creation without the arbitrary limiting effects of coercive institutions. That a decent society should maximize the possibilities for this fundamental human characteristic to be realized.
Hello.
Wow, thanks, Russ. Yeah, cool.
Well, thank you. It looks like it was a little chopped off on the side there. Well, thank you. Okay, so how do I get you back?
I like that MI as opposed to I am at the end.
Oh yeah. We like to play with opposites and paradox and duality.
Yeah, creator MI, not creator I am. It's like a kind of better version of Aries. No. Yeah. So very fitting.
There we go. Great, thank you. Yeah, well, I wanted to go ahead and several things that Laura said, particularly with the concepts of the tetrahedrons working together in this space-time reality and duality. It's like that's what I was saying. You're speaking my language, because this is the connection of the balance. The balance of opposites, the balance of other with trines, the balance of squares, how everything mathematically wants to find balance, and looking at the equinox from that point of view, it is the day of a perfect balance at one moment, light being equal across the planet. Well, wherever you, depending on where you are, the dark side or the light side, but the sunlight rays are balanced equally across the planet as it crosses the equator. And I think that little video says a lot if you can look into the patterns and see something along the lines of what astrologers see. So yeah,
I can't wait for holographic astrology charts.
Oh yeah, we need.
They will come. Is that a Uranus in Taurus thing, like where we can go into room, we sit in the middle of our astrology chart? Or what a great teaching method to sit in the middle and you go, that's the fixed star. That's where the heavens were. This is where the planets were. This is, these are your squares. These are, like, right. How cool would that be? Anyway, yeah. I'm sure. Who knows how to do that?
Well, I'm sure some other government agencies working on that. We'll have to send some CIA reps in there to figure that one out. So.
Yeah. Oh no, it's great. It's great to look at it that way, because it helps very much the mind align with the patterns and the turning, and really it's almost like putting movement into everything that we think of, isn't it? Which is a perfect sort of movement onto Shannon, and the way that she kind of moves astrology through her teachings and that type of thing, but perhaps mostly focused on the intention, that how intention works and how we can focus our intentions at this time, not just personally, but also, with the collective. And do we think that I think it's working. Do we think that the astrological alignments and people understanding them is helping our co-creative kind of existence on the planet? I believe it is. It is infiltrating, which has been our mission. So
I believe it is.
You know that it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. I definitely think that it is. I think that's the power in astrology, and that's why we're so passionate about what we do, is that there are cycles and there are patterns, and that we are not separate from them. And so if we even have just a little bit of information about our imprint, our birth chart, the transits coming, we can choose to make choices that can come and bring us into alignment, or at least we're not completely caught off guard and we're just thrown around unconsciously. But, absolutely. And back to what Laura was saying, the power of the mind, the power of intention, everything starts with belief, and that everything is energy, everything is vibration, especially the stories that we're telling ourselves. And often those are very unconscious and old. And so I'm very much a believer in reprogramming the old stories and the old unconscious beliefs, and being impeccable with your words, that everything that comes from the unconscious into the form of thought then is spoken, is on its way into creation. And so that's something that I work with my clients on. And so bringing it full circle to, why it's so powerful to be intentional at these points is that, especially when we're doing this on a global scale collectively, sure, we're taking, you know, ancient wisdom. People in history, cultures always knew that you honor the elements and you honor the thresholds. They had, their livelihood depended on following the seasons and marking and paying attention to the stars. And of course, in today's world and the state of disconnection and evolution, where we're so dissociated and distracted, you know, so many people have lost that connection, and it's a direct correlation to the uprise and mental disorder, which is, you know, in direct connection and relationship to the state of our earth. And I love eco-psychology, and that there's fields that are emerging that are helping put those pieces together. So yeah, I think that we just want to inspire, invite people to understand that there is power in taking pause, whether you're alone or if you can get together with a community, that putting your energy into a creator at the unfoldment of your own life. And, you know, so, you know, some suggestions at this time, you know, we're looking at the balance, obviously. So contemplating just the essence of that we've spoke about in many ways today, the balance of the masculine and the feminine within yourself, the balance of work and play, the balance of mind and body. And just, it's the powerful thing, I think, is just taking stock and marking our lives and celebrating, but also just acknowledging the process. Otherwise, we're just on a hamster wheel, and the weeks turn into months, turn into years. And we actually aren't engaging in the co-creative process, which I fully believe that we are co-creators, creating with divine. So that would be the invitation, you know, and like you started, Julia, this afternoon speaking, or evening, morning, wherever you are,
morning
around now. Yeah, you know, in today's world, we actually we have the power to connect through the internet, and the internet is just an outward manifestation of the collective consciousness. So we actually don't even need the internet, but that we had to create the internet so that we understood our capacity. But that if we can take pause somewhere in the 24 hours, the closest to the still, and find alignment to the truth of our hearts. And, you know, there's really no wrong way to do this. You can draw upon ancient cultural traditions, something that you've experienced, something that you just want to follow your heart and use your intuition to create, something that feels sacred. You know, it can be very simple. It's just burning incense and putting some pretty crystals around. You know, I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit as far as what our intuitive wisdom, how it can lead us if we will just stop and listen. And so creating a sacred space, taking the time out, and then getting clear on this next cycle, you know, whether it be that you're starting spring and you're in a place of birth, then the meditation would be around, you know, celebrating that you made it through another journey to the underworld, and then acknowledging, you know, the phoenix rising from the ashes, and who are you now in this new form? What consciousness are you bringing? What new motivation or enthusiasm do you have to offer as an agent of consciousness to the world? And putting those intentions into form through, you know, first mind, thought, then word, writing them down, speaking them out loud to, you know, with a group, being witnessed. And then, of course, it would be somewhat like the opposite, you know, if you're entering the time of darkness and celebrating the harvest and, you know, the cycle of the wheel and all of the abundance from the seasons of growth. And preparing for that time of darkness and that internal journey, and allowing, you know, resting in that place of renewal and trust. Conscious realm. There's jewels when we turn towards our shadow. It's a necessary part, just like nature, for the leaves to decay. So to us on a soul level, we have to be reborn. So the intentions would be around some of those ideas of what it is that you're working with, you know, and it's basically that simple. It's really that simple. And doing it in a prayerful way, in a place of gratitude. And I guess that would be sort of our overall hope for us being in alignment. And then, of course, global prayers, 24 hours of thousands of people, visualizing peace on the earth, visualizing the balance within the masculine and the feminine, the elevation of the divine feminine to meet the divine masculine, to return to the divine androgen, as we move into this age of Aquarius, where we're really going to be called to remember ourselves on those levels. So to believe in the power of ritual and ceremony, and definitely bring some kind of celebration to it, because we don't do that enough in our lives. We're just really mostly programmed to break our backs and to work and to produce and to give.
Good point.
So
the moon
I'm an
will be in
advocate of also
Taurus.
just letting our hair down and celebrating the thresholds. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
There we go. Some good food and maybe some other goodness.
Yeah, no, it's thanks so much, Shannon. And look, Shannon has or Agent 83 has written an extensive let's say preparation for the equinox, and it's on the page that I'll link it up to under here for those that want to, seriously, it's a good idea, even if you only got 5 minutes or 10 minutes, align ourselves, collectively at this time to sort of envision where we're going. And Shannon, I was just going to ask you, is it important to verbalize like loudly what, let's say, your intentions are? That is a mercurial thing, isn't it? To not just have it in the mind, but to speak it. Yes?
To bring it into form, absolutely, because then it takes on the energetics of creation.
Yeah.
And then it's already sent out into the collective to begin to take form. Everything's energy, everything's vibration. So the further that we can take it through and out. And I also am a firm believer in witnessing one another and holding space for one another, so that we actually can hold each other accountable and hold the process for one another as life gets busy. And it's like, you easily forgotten that we had this dream or this wish of something more, and it somehow got lost in the day-to-day hustle. So sharing it with friends or family, writing it down, any way that you can bring it
gather
to light,
a group.
I think is going to just
a lovely thing to do here, because it's autumn, of course, is having a fire out the back. It's very Australian.
Definitely.
As well.
Oh yeah.
And the skies are clear. So, well, listen, we better wrap it up, because as usual, we could talk for hours, and this is what we love. But, perhaps everyone that's been listening today has enjoyed listening in and being with us today. So thanks for being online and being patient. Firstly, thank you to the 3 agents for all your wonderful input. And happy Astrology Day. Great. Well, that's tomorrow. Sorry, that's tomorrow.
Julia.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I just wanted to share really quickly. We had a spring equinox ceremony at our retreat center yesterday, and I just want to offer this as an example. We created a medicine wheel on the land with the 4 cardinal directions, and we had the children, we had the elders, we had the whole community, we had drumming, we had a fire, there was flowers. It was so beautiful to get the children involved. It just feels like it's innate in us, that we do these things. We create art on the earth with meaning. And it was just a beautiful day. Something very simple you could do in your backyard.
Yeah, that's right. Gathering the community. I mean, it's lovely to see that in, Australians tend to sort of stick in their own little backyards, with their own friends, but it's not a community spirited thing. What about in France? What about in southern France? I can imagine turning wheels and fires in the villages, but
summer solstice
is that. Yeah.
But generally, this little bubble of me and Philip, and no, we do our private things, and we we do our meditations, and but normally what I do is we do it outside, and we'll do it with fire or whatever.
Yeah, outside is kind of I think an important part of it somehow as well. just having been to India, as you said, like, and Laura, you were saying how, pollution and that type of thing makes us sick. India was like that to me. It was just overwhelmingly, that energy of the air and the fires and, all of that was just hard for me to cope with because I'm used to the fresh air of Australia. And
it's hard to keep clear when there's that much toxicity going on,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And, to me, nature is God. So the closer I am to nature, the more I feel alive that way, away from our computer screens and all that kind of stuff. But what would we do without that? It's very cool. So, look, just to also sum up, Shannon, Russell, myself, Adam Summer and Gemini Brett are planning an event in Colorado on the the weekend of the 8th, 9th and 10th of June. So it's 2 weeks after UAC.
Yes.
There's more information coming of that very soon. There's also something happening the week after UAC in Buffalo, New York. It's Buffalo, New York, with Cassandra Butler, Agent 56, who's organising something there, and potentially something in Toronto. So we're actually starting what we call the 2020 Vision Tour of the CIA and gathering or having events where we can around the world. So perhaps we can see one happen in southern France as well. Yes. Please. And then for any other agents that are anywhere in the world, I've got a few more to announce, but I won't do it today. But in Germany, we've got a new agent coming up. What's his name? Christian Koenig, that we met in India. And so there's more happening. And Andrew, I can't say his name, Andrew from Greece, Andrew Ifandis from Greece, another Christian from, anyway, I won't do them justice by just saying that right now. So anyway, a 2020 Vision Tour of CIA agents doing things around the world is what we're starting in coming up very soon. So keep on track, keep informed with what we're doing, and mainly have a wonderful equinox experience. Really kind of zone into it, gather your mind, thoughts, passions about the next 3 months ahead, and we wish you a good journey until then. And of course, we'll be in touch. But thank you, Laura. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Russell, or agents, I should say. Names are not relevant.
Thank you.
And make the most of Astrology Day, however you can as well. Yeah. All right. So blessings to you all, and we will see you online again soon. Bye for now.